Good evening. I'll call this meeting of the Housing Authority for the City of Salem for Monday, July 25th, 2022 to order. If the reporter will please call the roll.
Vice Chair Stapleton.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Phillips.
Here.
Commissioner Leung is absent. Commissioner Gonzalez is absent. Commissioner Nordyke.
Here.
Commissioner Varney.
Here.
Chair Hoy.
Here. And if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Vice Chair Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
We do not.
Thank you. And we have nobody signed up for public comment for the Housing Authority. Vice Chair Stapleton, the consent calendar, please.
Yeah, I move approval of the consent calendar with the exceptions of items 3.2A and 3.3A pulled by Councilor or Commissioner Anderson.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Would you like me to read the items?
I would. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks. All right, so the remaining items on the consent calendar are item 3.1A, which are the July 11th, 2022 draft Salem Housing Authority minutes. A moment here. Items 3.3B, amendments to the Salem Housing Authority's 2022 through 2026 Public Housing Agency Plan and Annual Capital Fund Plan. And item 3.3C, the Salem Housing Authority participation in the Move to Work demonstration program approval to submit Salem Housing Authority's Move to Work plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And that concludes our consent calendar.
Excellent. Any further discussion? If the recorder will please call the roll.
Commissioner Varney.
Aye.
Vice Chair Stapleton.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Commissioner Leung is absent. Commissioner Gonzalez is absent. Commissioner Nordyke.
Aye.
Chair Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. We have no public hearings. Now on to special orders of business. Item 3.2A, Commissioner Anderson, please.
Thank you, Chair Hoy. I move the staff recommendation that we approve the addition of 10 new positions for the current Salem Housing Authority budget and creation of new job classifications and pay ranges effective today.
Second.
I will second that.
Seconded by Stapleton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I clearly am all in favor of this. It's terrific. It expands what we do, and I'm asking if Director Utz can just expand on this and tell the public not only it's increasing the good job that the Housing Authority is already doing, but it's really broadening the scope of what we can do. And I think it fits in with the sort of reworking of the Housing Authority that we've been discussing for a while.
Thank you. Ms. Utz, would you like to respond?
Thank you. I'm Nicole Utz. I'm the Housing Administrator for Salem Housing Authority. And I do have Michelle Bennett here as well to help answer any questions, but I can tell you this has been a goal of the Housing Authority for the last few years. We have been very busy during the COVID-19 pandemic and many other circumstances that occurred unexpectedly. And so we were really focused some energy and time as we have gone through some staff that have left our agency. We have not filled some positions purposefully to ensure that we can do a thorough strategic plan to help build this agency into the future and the growth that we can keep up with. As you know, we've probably had 20 different staff leave over the last year, and we have strategically filled positions and left some positions open in order to really analyze the needs of our community and the agency and what needed to happen in order for us to keep up with our expanded growth of apartment complexes, voucher programs, grant programs, and everything that we have going on here without, and also really being cognizant to the burnout rate and the fact that we need to have succession and career development plans in place for our staff. So with all that in sight, we worked diligently with Michelle and her team, and we've been carefully trying to map out what is the best opportunity to keep this great work in the community growing, as well as keep our employees marketable, our rates marketable for their wages, to ensure that all of this great tenure that we have and we've built into this agency doesn't depart us unexpectedly into the future. So that was the basis for this. Michelle, you can take it away.
Thank you, Michelle Bennett, City of Salem, Human Resource Operations Division Manager. I've been working with Nicole and the Housing Authority for a very long time. This year, we've had a great opportunity to really build some succession planning into the Housing Authority, something that was tremendously lacking, as well as additional leadership opportunities so that Nicole could focus her attentions to running the business rather than managing the staff. So we have proposed these 10 positions, which will significantly help the efficiencies over at Salem Housing Authority. And we currently have about 6 vacancies already. So this will help us to have the staff enough and the resources enough to truly dedicate time to finding the right assets for Salem Housing Authority. We did a market review with an outside vendor, and we were significantly behind market in most all of our classifications. And Salem Housing Authority has been behind the City of Salem even in their wages. And so this just also brings them up to parity with the City of Salem. So again, a tremendous opportunity to, like Nicole said, retain a lot of talent that we might otherwise lose to competitors.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett, and thank you for all of your work on this. It's really, really critical work. I very much appreciate it. Ms. Utes, could you talk to us for just a moment about how we're going to pay for this? How we're going to make this work financially?
Sure. Nicole Utes, Housing Administrator for Salem Housing Authority again. And I just want to say that the Housing Authority has multiple different funding sources that we pull from every single year. We have done more development in the last few years than in past years with the Housing Authority. With each of those projects comes developer fees, as well as the continued waterfall effect, which we are having technical analysis being done presently, as well as into the future. With a third-party vendor that is helping us to really analyze all of our assets and ensure that we're capitalizing on all of that to ensure the longevity of the property, as well as a second phase to ensure we need additional staffing into the future for property managing, maintenance, and making sure we're taking care of them well. Besides that, many of you heard of many of the grant opportunities that we've brought into this agency through the last few years. Many of those grants come with administrative dollars that we haven't been capitalizing on, and we're going to be putting that to good use at this point, as well as all of our voucher programs that we've expanded vastly over the last few years. And to put into mindset, when Michelle said we're completely behind, in 2010, 2011, the Housing Authority was pretty much paid 60 cents on the dollar for every dollar we received from HUD. It was difficult to keep up with the curve. We're currently being funded at 100% level, which allows us the opportunity to expand vastly. We will carefully have to monitor this, and as we strategize this, obviously every position will come into effect immediately, and we anticipate bringing each position in and strategizing down further and doing some more careful analysis. As we brought in all of this into this agency, we have not expanded our finance team, which is vastly needing some assistance to keep up with the demand and payments and workload that comes through here. There are several positions that will help with grant administration and budget analysis that will help us to analyze all of this going into the future.
Thank you. And so just to maybe summarize, this is all Housing Authority specific funding. None of this is City General Fund. This is all money that's only to be used at the Housing Authority. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Nordyke.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure I understand. When I look at the staff report, your report says you currently have 52 FTE. So this is to add 10 more for a total of 62 positions. Is that correct?
That is correct. We do not have all 52 positions filled. So,
Right. Understood. Can you give us a real world example of how these additional positions might result in additional people being housed?
this is Nicole Yates with the Salem Housing Authority again. I can tell you that by expanding this and putting the succession plan into place, this will build opportunity for us to go out and seek additional funding sources and streams to bring into the agency and hopefully expand upon what our goal was to rebrand the Salem Housing Authority, build different arms and be able to bring in more grant opportunities and potentially go into our own development arm ourselves, which we currently pay for outside housing development assistance, which is great and it's wonderful. But we can potentially do some of that work in-house ourselves into the future, as well as better maintaining, better analyzing our ability to keep all the programs going. We have to be compliant with all of those programs to be in good standing with this agency, which we've worked very, very hard to do, as well as keep our voucher utilization above 90%. And we're currently at 92%, scheduled to almost be 100% full again by the end of this year. I can tell you every opportunity we get, we seek out additional funding sources to bring more vouchers in. And this will be able to provide more individuals to help find those additional sources and seek out that grant writing to make it happen.
Any other questions? Ms. Rutherford?
I just wanted to add something about the development side of the business, because this is something that Nicole has been very engaged in, and Nicole is extremely humble, and I know that she wouldn't share, everything that she's doing at the Housing Authority, but in addition to, overseeing the organization as a whole, she has been very engaged in the development activity and doing 2 or 3 jobs on the development side of things in addition to overseeing the organization. So when we want to talk about adding capacity to better serve the community, this is really going to help us get more housing built as well.
Thank you, Ms. Rutherford, for highlighting that. This has been a goal of mine for a while, is to giving our staff the support they need to be able to do their jobs well, because we've really been taxing them probably beyond their max. And so this is really great. And I'm really looking forward to the work that's going to be done with this. Any other questions or comments? All right, if the reporter will please call the roll.
Vice Chair Stapleton.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Commissioner Leung is absent. Commissioner Gonzalez absent. Commissioner Nordyke.
Aye.
Commissioner Varney.
Aye.
Chair Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. Commissioner Anderson, 3.3A.
Thank you. I move the staff recommendation to adopt resolution number 2287, authorizing the executive director to execute an agreement for the Salem Housing Authority to serve as general manager of Salem Manor Apartments to facilitate the development of affordable housing.
I'll second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Stapleton. Commissioner Anderson, go ahead.
This is a companion piece to the other one I pulled, the motion I made. I just want the public to know the fine work that the Housing Authority and its executive director are doing, and also what we on the council are doing to respond to one of the main concerns of the citizens in our community, which is affordable housing and how we take care of housing. And kind of a corollary to that is how we deal and respond to the our unsheltered neighbors. And this is just another example of how we're doing that. And part of the reason we can do that is because the SHA is so extremely effective in how they handle their work. And I'm sure their general manager duties of the Salem Manor Apartments will enhance further the ability to house folks who deserve and need housing.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Ms. Utes, I just wanted to flag for you that this property is in my ward, and I'm very aware of it. I get a lot, I shouldn't say a lot, I've had, over the past 5.5 years, I've had quite a bit of constituent contact from folks who reside here. And so I think it's really important that we make sure that we are monitoring this, how this thing goes forward, and make sure that we have a really good handle on it. I just wanted to flag that for you, and we can talk offline more about that.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from Ms. Utes? All right, if the recorder will please call the roll.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Phillips,
Aye.
Commissioner Leon absent, Commissioner Gonzalez absent, Commissioner Nordick,
Aye.
Commissioner Barney,
Aye.
Vice Chair Stapleton. Aye. Chair Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. All right, we have, we're down to information reports then. Ms. Utes, do you have anything you wanted to talk to us about before we fire away with our questions on 6A?
Nicole Utes, Salem Housing Authority. I just wanted to bring attention that we are working to get our moving to work application completed by the 28th. This is, we actually have visited in multiple locations, gotten feedback. We've actually got some wonderful feedback from partners in the community to help support the application. We will be working to get this submitted on time on the 28th, and we're just happy to give it our best shot, even though there's only 30 agencies in the United States that will be chosen for this. We wanted to do it for the best effort of the community.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for putting in the, I know this was a really short timeline and you've really been putting the time in to get this thing done, so thank you. Other questions for Ms. Utes? Vice Chair Stapleton.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Nicole, because this, when I read through this packet, I thought, yep, this is the Salem Housing Authority and how busy they are and the proof of the good work that's happening in our communities. This moving to work plan was really exciting to read about. And I am very hopeful that we get it, of course. And thank you so much for putting in all the extra work, and whether or not moving forward, like you said, it's only 30 cities are going to be selected. But I know that the good work at the Salem Housing Authority is going to represent Salem well in the application process. And so thank you so much for your work. And again, just always overwhelmed with gratitude for the work you guys are doing when I read your reports. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Stapleton. Anything else from anybody else? All right, we are adjourned.
Well, good evening. I'm going to call this meeting of the City of Salem Urban Renewal Agency for July 25th to order. If the recorder please call the roll.
Board Member Stapleton.
I'm here.
Board Member Anderson.
Aye as well.
Board Member Phillips.
I'm mostly here.
Board Member Leon absent. Board Member Gonzalez absent. Board Member Hoy.
Here.
Board Member Nordyke.
Here.
Board Member Varney.
Here.
Chair Bennett.
Here. Okay. Don't have anyone signed up for public comment. Councilor Hoy, do you want to move the consent calendar?
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Second by Anderson. Any discussion? Councilor Hoy, what do you got there?
Item 3.1A, the June 27, 2022 draft urban renewal agency minutes. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Okay, any discussion? Okay. Recorder, please call the roll.
Sorry about that. Board Member Stapleton.
Aye.
Board Member Anderson.
Aye.
Board Member Phillips. Board Member Leung absent. Board Member Gonzalez absent. Board Member Hoy.
Aye.
Board Member Nordijk.
Aye.
Board Member Varney.
Aye.
Chair Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Don't see any further business. Meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency is adjourned. We'll move to the Salem City Council meeting for July 25th. If the recorder please call a roll.
Councillor Stapleton.
Here.
Councillor Anderson.
Here.
Councillor Phillips.
Here.
Councillor Leung is absent. Councillor Gonzalez is absent. Councillor Hoy.
Here.
Councillor Nordijk.
Here.
Councillor Varney.
Here.
Mayor Bennett.
Here. Okay. Any additions or deletions, Councillor Hoy?
No, Mr. Mayor, but I would note that on item 4B, there's a Scribner's error. That's actually Ward 3. It's listed as Ward 4, but it's actually Ward 3. But no actual motion for that.
Okay. All righty. Okay, any comments from city councilors? Yeah, Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep this brief. I have COVID, so I'm fine. I'm getting better. I became symptomatic early Saturday morning. Fevers, body aches, sore throat. I'm feeling quite a bit better today. I'm just going to take this opportunity to say that even if you're, being cautious, wearing a mask and getting vaccinated, you can still be tagged by this viral adversary. So, what is true still is that you should get yourself fully vaccinated and boosted because it does decrease your risk of getting hospitalized and dying. This is no fun. Mild COVID, I wouldn't wish this on anybody. It sucks. But getting vaccinated, like in 2.5 days, I'm feeling quite a bit better. I'm likely to make a full recovery. In addition to that, I would just encourage people to take their own personal health situation into account and consider wearing a mask when leaving their primary residence if they're going to, a gathering indoors. So thank you.
Thank you, and continue to get better. I'm sure you will. Anyone else? Councillor Stapleton.
Thank you so much. I just really wanted to quickly invite everybody to the Inglewood Forest Festival, which is coming up this next month. That's going to be on Saturday, August. What is that? The 13th? Hold on. I didn't write it down. Yes, the 13th from 10 to 4 at Inglewood Park here in Ward 1. It's a wonderful festival. It's free. There's lots of food and music and artists and local environmental groups that are doing some teaching as well. So really a great opportunity to get together as a community and enjoy each other's company outdoors and the beautiful weather, hopefully, that we're going to continue to have. So just wanted to say that. It's good to be back after a little bit of a vacation. And I'm excited to see the R Salem that is on our agenda later, but that I didn't get to vote on last time. Just wanted to say really proud of the work that the city staff put forward on that and excited to be here to kind of close that out and send it forward. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Nordijk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So earlier this evening, City Council in its capacity through the Salem Housing Authority has recently added budgeting for 10 more positions to the Salem Housing Authority. I'm really excited about that, and I think the rest of council is too. We keep hearing over and over again from our community that we desperately need more housing at every price point, but especially at a low income price point. And the Salem Housing Authority staff under Nicole Utz's leadership has done a great job, but there's only so much you can do with the existing positions. So they've come to us with that additional request, and council wasted no time in approving it this evening. That means more resources to connect people to existing opportunities. And it also means that the staff can now have the additional time to seek additional revenue sources, looking for more grants, more opportunities to increase our portfolio of housing for low-income seniors and working people. So I was really excited about that. And also in the city manager remarks tonight, you'll be hearing a little bit about the Salem Airport. And I just wanted to let folks know that there apparently was some information out there suggesting that council would be deliberating on voting to close a runway tonight. News to me. I can tell you I have flown down that runway. A member of my family is a pilot and a flight instructor and uses that runway on the regular. So it's certainly not something I'm supportive of, but I haven't heard anyone from council express interest in that either, because that's just not a thing that is currently before us tonight. But I reached out to our interim city manager, who will provide additional clarification. But I just wanted to assure all the pilots out here who either fly out of Salem or fly to Salem from places like Yakima or Aurora or Independence or any of our other locally based pilots. They help contribute to our economy. And I am happy to see that we are a part of a hub of local airports. So anyway, just want to help set records straight. I shared the city manager's remarks on my Facebook page. You're welcome to read that there. And I'm sure the city manager can provide additional information. So anyway, thanks for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to sort of give colleagues and also the public a heads up on an item on that's on our agenda tonight. 6A is an information report regarding the Salem Parks and Rec Advisory Board and how it communicates with the City Council. And I just wanted to let folks know that one of the things that I intend to do when I take office in January is initiate a review of our boards and commissions and all of them, and how I think it's just time to take a fresh look at how they are all set up, whether they're still relevant, meeting our needs, how the rules surrounding them, that sort of thing. And so this is kind of a one-off, but we are going to take a more comprehensive look at all of these things just to kind of bring everything up to speed. So I just wanted to let folks know that.
Anyone else? Well, I can't agree with you more, Councillor Hoy. I think that's a really good idea. That can get pretty stale after however many years it's been. Some of these have been where they are. We've had a look at a few, but I think having a really systemic look is just really good idea. Also want to second the comments on Nicole Utes and the work she and her staff have done over the years. I've been really pleased, I think, on behalf of the entire city for the work she and Ms. Rutherford have done by managing and handling the really progressive Salem Housing Authority activities we've had going for the past 6 years. I really think it's been really outstanding. And I join you, Councillor Nordyke. I've been answering emails all day trying to explain to people that don't know who made it up, but somebody made it up. We've got a full agenda tonight. It does not include an airport runway. And I'm looking forward to Ms. Rutherford's comments here in a second to explain how that one works. So Ms. Rutherford, why don't you help us out here and help the pilots out? I know we're very concerned about the future of the airport.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. Yes, I would like to take a moment to speak about the misunderstanding about tonight's agenda. We have received, I stopped counting how many emails, a lot of emails with concerns about closing the secondary runway. I'm not sure what the origin of the rumor about tonight's agenda, what that was. But the agenda tonight does not include any proposal to close the secondary runway, and that is not something that we currently have in the works. It's just not the case. We do have a work session on Thursday, the council's policy agenda work session, where there is an aviation item that will be discussed, but it's not about closing the runway. It's more about improvements that would be needed for commercial air service. So maybe that led to some confusion. We did have also a work session with council April 2021, where we talked about long-range planning at the airport. And we talked about obstructions that we have off of each end of the secondary runway. We've got trees that have created obstructions. And those obstructions have meant that we've got navigational aids that we can no longer use. So we will have to make some decisions at some point that we will either have to acquire easements and remove trees in order to maintain the secondary runway, or we will have to close the secondary runway. So there will be a choice to be faced in the future, but we're not making that choice tonight. And before we would come to council with that choice, we are moving forward with a master plan update to the airport so that we can look at all of these options and what the trade-offs are, and look at, how many trees there are that we would have to deal with, and what those costs would be associated with acquiring the navigation easements and removing the trees, so that we can present all of that to council so that council could make an informed decision when it comes to all of the different impacts and all of the different components of our community that could be impacted by these decisions. So we're looking at kicking off this master plan update to this fall, probably towards the end of October. That's going to be an 18-month to 2-year process where there will be a great deal of public outreach and engagement with our airport community and the users at the airport to get input, just like people were wanting to give tonight. So there will be a lot of opportunity for folks to provide that kind of input before this would ever come back to council for any sort of decision or for anything to be implemented, whether it is closure or tree removal. So any questions from councilors about that? And then I've got one other item to speak to if we don't have any. All right, then we will look forward to working with council, with the community, and with our airport users starting this fall on updating that master plan. The second item that I wanted to speak to tonight is the heat index and temperatures. The heat index is supposed to be about 130 tomorrow, which is the extreme danger level. And we are asking people to be very cautious when they're spending time out of doors and to limit their exposure. We have several cooling locations available throughout the city, including the library and Center 50 Plus, as well as UGM, Arches, and other facilities that are being staffed by our nonprofit partners. Our Facebook page has been updated with these locations, as has the city website. Our 5 neighborhood spray fountains are open from noon until 8 p.m. to help people cool down. The Riverfront Park and River Road splash pads are opening at 10 a.m. So it's a reminder to people to drink plenty of water, wear your sunscreen, look out for your neighbors, for each other, and also let everyone know, because of these temps, we will not be having any water shutoffs this week. And we are also providing water to community partners to distribute to our unsheltered residents. And just one last reminder that when temperatures skyrocket, a lot of people want to go to the river to cool off. Just a reminder that those currents can be surprisingly strong, even for experienced swimmers. So keep an eye out for each other. Lots of times when people are struggling, when they're drowning, it doesn't look like they are drowning. It looks like maybe they're goofing around. Wear your personal flotation devices and stay safe. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hoy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could just follow up on what Ms. Rutherford said. I don't believe you said this, but I apologize if you did. I believe Chariots will provide free rides to anybody going to a cooling center as well. So if you're in the need, that's available to you as well for free.
Thank you. I did not share that. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we'll move on then. No proclamations, no presentations. We have a couple of folks for public comment. Just 1 second here. Dylan McDowell on 6A.
Hi, Mayor, members of City Council. Good to see you all. I was hoping to speak on 6A tonight, which was already brought up by Councilor Hoy. This is the letter from SPRAB, the Salem Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Really, We're hoping that tonight you'll actually take action on that, and opposed to just having it be an information report. We think this is a real opportunity for us to find new ways of working together and like to see more collaboration between SPRAB and council. As you may know, in the city of the code, there's actually a requirement for council and SPRAB to be working together more. And I think that these 5 recommendations can be a really nice start. And Councillor Hoy, I love the idea of taking a full assessment in the new year. And I hope that these recommendations can also be a way for you to look at what other boards and commissions could do as well. I'll just quickly run through the 5 recommendations. I know you all have pretty big packets, so just to kind of outline what we're looking at here. The first is an annual agenda item for SPRAB to present. Right now, when I, as chair of SPRAB, come to present to council, especially once a year at our annual report, I have to sign up as a member of the public, which means that, as you know, there's a limit of how many members of the public, so I have to make sure I sign up at 8 a.m. and get on the agenda in time. So I think it'd be great to have an agenda item where you all could be ready to share ideas and thoughts with us that I could take back to SPRAB, and I could bring SPRAB ideas to council. Number 2 would be to have SPRAB members invited to a council work session or a representative of SPRAB when it's related to trees, parks, other issues within our portfolio. That would help, I think, once again, provide an opportunity for us to share insight of what we're hearing at our SPRAB meetings to you all as councilors, and just to create that opportunity, once again, for me to talk to you all outside of just individual communication and the occasional public comment. Number 3 would be inviting a member of council to serve as a liaison to SPRAB. We're very lucky now to have an alumni with Councillor Varney and representing SPRAB here, our former SPRAB member, but really inviting one of you to be a liaison that could attend our meetings semi-regularly and other opportunities, just to be that voice between what the 2 bodies are hearing. Number 3 is looking at specific issues, directing specific issues to SPRAB to share recommendations. Last year, a good example of this was Councillor Councillor Nordyke sending us the Parks Usage and Planning Subcommittee work, and where that we were able to come up with a bunch of recommendations looking at other cities in terms of ways of improving our park protocols here. So I'm really grateful for Councillor Nordyke, and I think there's a lot to build on with that. And then finally, the Climate Action Plan, I was fortunate to be on the task force as a member of SPRAB. And I think as we're looking at implementing that at our Natural Resource Code, it'd be great to have SPRAB involved in those discussions as well. So I'll wrap up there and just say that, while it's listed as an information report, I would really encourage council to consider a motion to enact some of these changes. So as early as we're coming back with our annual report later this fall and other opportunities, we can work more closely with you. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hey, anyone have any questions for Mr. McDowell? Yes, Councillor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. I appreciate the shout out, but more importantly, I appreciate the work that you and the members of SPRAB have done, including a former member, Councillor Varney, and of course, all the staff. The overall impression that I'm getting from your recommendations is that you want more engagement with the city at its highest leadership levels around parks, recreation, and everything that seems to go on there. Is that the sentiment from the other members of SPRAB as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that, to Councillor Hoy's comment, there's ways, and Mayor Bennett, your comment as well, there's ways of really looking at these boards and commissions in a new way. And I think recognizing how much work is on your plate as city councilors, the more that you can rely on our boards and commissions to come up with ideas and recommendations that can then come back to you as council, I think it'll create a more efficient processes, and it'll help rely on the expertise of people like myself that are volunteering on areas where we're passionate about, that we can then bring these ideas back. So it's not all incumbent upon you as councilors to solve all the problems. Well, ultimately, I know that you all are doing so much right now, and so I think we can find ways, including some of these, to have more communication and more ways for SPRAB members to engage with you as council.
Great, and I appreciate that, and I think the key is if council under Mayor-elect Hoy's leadership ultimately pursues these recommendations, which I'm largely supportive of, my goal would be, if we're going to engage, we don't want to create more information silos. So if we're delegating certain types of activities, I just hope that there's a two-way communication throughout that process. So that's what I would really like to see. So thank you again for your leadership. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stapleton.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to second, both Councillor Hoy, Mayor Bennett, and Councillor Nordyke's comments on this. And thank you, Dylan, for all your work here. And let you know that I'm fully supportive of moving forward on this idea. It's actually something I had talked about with the city manager this past month in our one-on-one meeting, talking about how can we really engage these committees and advisory boards in a way that we can work together more fluidly and closely, because I really do appreciate the citizens who serve on those boards. And the hard work that they do. And I think that we can elevate them and the relationship between us and how we can work together better and achieve more together for the community. So thanks for bringing this forward. I'm fully supportive of it and excited to see us move forward with Councilor Hoy's talk of doing this next year, or maybe we could do something sooner. Either way, I'm really supportive of that.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I must confess that I went offline on the computer and I just got back in, so I may be repeating what other people have said, but thank you, Dylan, and the hard work you do. I also am extremely excited about number 5 because I was a counselor who started this, and the rest of the council has done a terrific job of coming up with our task force recommendations, and we'd love to see the Parks and Rec Advisory Board help us out here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Varney.
Thank you very much, Mayor Bennett. And Dylan, thank you, and congratulations, Chair McDowell, on being selected chair again. I just wanted to say this is fantastic. I'm so glad that SPRAB has put this forth. You've just expanded on a discussion that we started back in 2020, where we were talking about getting, it was an idea, a concept for increased engagement and for working collaboratively with the council. And you've just taken that and the little pieces we came up with then and just expanded on it. And I just wanted to say thank you so much. I think this is great.
Well, and thank you for your leadership on SPRAB as well, and helping really drive these conversations to get us to this point.
Very good. Any other? I think the only question I have is for the either city manager or city attorney. Can we move forward on this evening? Is this structured in a way that we can move forward? Or do we need to wait one meeting?
It would take a motion from council, which would be appropriate at this time.
Say again?
We would take a motion from council, which you could make at this meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right.
Thank you all so much.
Corey Poole.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and esteemed councilors. My name is Corey Poole. I'm the Simca Neighborhood Association Chair, and I own Paradise Island Park on Turner Road. Our community is home to 214 55+ households. I would like to first thank Public Works staff, Salem Park staff, Salem Police, with a very special thank you to Chief Womack and Officers Ramirez and Bennett for taking significant steps in reducing the number of illegal homeless camps in Cascades Gateway Park. It has been a notable improvement. It is our hope that we will soon welcome all Salem residents back to Cascades Gateway Park to enjoy its beauty in peace and safety for all. I'm also here tonight to speak in regards to item 6D, the proposed micro home village at 2410 Turner Road on Southeast Salem. I'm requesting that the city of Salem funds the operations of a youth-centered micro village shelter program managed by Church at the Park at that location, 2410 Turner Road Southeast. The current no barrier drop-in services hosted at this location contribute to many of the problems in our neighborhood. The nature of these services and the way in which they are furnished to the homeless community attracts significant disruptive behavior by some of those receiving these services, as well as encouraging illegal camping in the area. It is my hope that a managed program like those offered by Church at the Park in their micro villages that is not open to the general public will result in a more stable population that will be engaged with the programs offered by Church at the Park, resulting in a decrease in theft, trespass, and other disruptive behaviors. I also strongly support the funding of a security fence around Church at the Park facility to reduce trespass on neighboring properties and by those accessing services, and allowing for the location at 2410 Turner Road to be a secure and safe site for all those seeking recovery. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Corey. Any questions? Councilor Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Corey, for your pretty much every city council meeting attendance. We appreciate that. This is in my ward, and I have been to SEMCA last time, and I just want to make sure we were talking at our last meeting about the Church at the Park being no drop-in, just managed campground. And at the time, Mr. Vincent said, we've got funding for this. We have partial funding for this. And at the neighborhood group meeting, as well as I think in the city council meeting, there was discussion of some of the, I don't know, it's $8.1 million we received or will be receiving from the county, thank you, and the state, thank you, to do things to affect our homeless situation. I suggested that maybe some of that money could be used to complete the funding for Church of the Park. And some people thought that I was saying it would be used to complete the funding. And Gretchen Bennett called me up the next day because you know how telephone gets going around. And it's just a possibility. And I know you recognize that, Corey, but I want everybody else to recognize that. And perhaps Gretchen or someone else might just be able to speak about the possibility of using some of that money to help the Church at the Park.
Let me see, is Gretchen here this evening?
Mayor, Gretchen is on vacation right now, but Josh is available, can speak to it.
Who is again?
Josh Eggleston is available.
Okay, Josh.
Can you speak about the funding picture.
Josh, could you speak to the funding use both as on the no drop-in side as well as the fencing this area?
Sure. Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer. Those specific pieces would be capital expenses. Those aren't really the concern for funding. I mean, it could definitely be a consideration when we get there. The more substantial concern is the ongoing operations. So there's definitely some choices that could be made to operate this site, but it would affect how long those one-time funding sources can continue. Right now, if you look at the attachment to the staff report that's being referenced, we have funding for current programs, not this new site, funding for current programs through 2024, fiscal year 2024. If you add this site, something drops off. So there's limited funding at this point, and it's not my recommendation to begin a new program without securing that sustainable funding first. Thank you.
Councilor Anderson?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for that report, Josh. I was under the impression that what we were talking about was capital funding as opposed to program funding. But what you're telling me is that where the Church of the Park is a little bereft is on the expenditures, the program funding as opposed to capital funding. Is that correct?
There's a little bit of both. In the testimony submitted, there's some one-time capital expenses to get the site ready and then an ongoing expense.
Okay. And so Church of the Park has problems potentially, doesn't have the grant for the ongoing expenses. Is that correct? You're understanding?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. But would the potential of us helping out with the capital expenditures potentially free some funds up for Church of the Park for the program expenditures?
We could certainly have that discussion. It's my understanding that they have a small portion of program funding available, so they would need additional capital dollars as well as operating dollars to get the site up.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in, because I understand that it's really not fiscally very responsible to start ongoing program expenditures when we only have a limited amount, but that's why we go to the capital expenditures. So I would like a continued discussion of that, whether or not some portion of this $8.1 million could be used for the capital expenditure, as you just discussed.
Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a reminder, the comments I made last time, Church at the Park does have some new money coming in for services regarding for youth support services, not for housing youth. They did not meet their criteria to do the housing portion, which is I think why they're coming to us now seeking that money, but that would be ongoing money. We did authorize the money to go to another local vendor. So those services are forthcoming. So I think it's important that we take a comprehensive look at are those services needed right now in the community, and we need to look to our staff to help guide us on that. I don't know if they are, but we're about to get a bunch of new services for youth that we've never had, and so whether or not there's a need further, I don't know. There could be, but I think it's important that we really look at that we look at the data and figure out, is that really where the need is right now? I mean, I understand that Church at the Park has a goal, and I understand that it would help out the situation there out on Turner Road. All those things are all true. I'm just not sure it makes the most sense from our comprehensive program to deal with homelessness right now. I just think we need to really consider all those things before we make any sort of decision.
Okay. Anyone else? Counselor, help me here just for a second. I sort of understood part of what you were saying. I want to make sure what the bottom line was to what you were saying in terms of your views on this particular item, if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
Go ahead.
Not at all. I concur. I believe you're talking to me as opposed to
you and Councillor Hoy. I want to understand both of you.
Well, I agree with what Councillor Hoy says.
Yeah.
That you've got to take a comprehensive look at this. I am saying we need to look at the potential of a capital expenditure from the $8.1 million and how that fits in with the overall picture. And I'm not talking about using that money for operating program expenses. And I think Councillor Hoy is saying there may be some other potential sources from that, but that's just part of the overall comprehensive look we have to take. And I'm sure staff will be coming back and saying, here's the pot of money we have, here's how we propose, here's where there might be some room to move one way or the other, and we'll be talking about that at future council meetings.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm just curious.
I'll try to speak more plainly. So Church at the Park would like to do transitional housing services for youth in micro shelters at their Turner Road site. They made an application to the Homeless Alliance through the federal dollars there. They didn't receive the money. They didn't receive the approval for the money they were looking for. They got money for the services to help with the programming, say the support kind of services, mental health, all those kinds of things that homeless youth need to be successful, but they didn't get any money to actually house them. Okay. Community Action Agency got that money, as well as some support money, because the micro shelters didn't qualify under the federal guidelines for youth transitional housing. And so I believe that's why they're now coming to us saying, hey, if you could help us out with getting these shelters on site and then paying for the money, paying for them for us to run them, then we could be providing some great services for youth. And I believe that's true. Yeah. The question is it what we need? And I don't know the answer to that yet.
Okay. What about the the issues raised by Mr. Poole, the fencing and the drop-in services? Is that part of what you're discussing?
No, that's okay. In my mind, and maybe the fence. I mean, I suppose we could help Church at the Park out with a fence, and we could decide to spend that money on a fence. But really, that's a Church at the Park issue. That's something that, I mean, whether they do drop-in services or not, that's a policy decision for the Church at the Park and their board. That's not a city council decision, as I see. I mean, I think what Mr. Poole is suggesting is if we were to do this other thing, then that would resolve that other issue, right? Because because DJ has said, if we start to do this, if we can do this service, we won't have to do that other service anymore. And so Mr. Poole's advocating we'll do this, so then that solves his problem of having the drop-in services. That's so So if we decide that having those youth transition services on that location is a good idea and that we have the money to fund it, then Mr. Poole's happy, Church at the Park's happy, the homeless youth are happy, and then all the problems are solved. But if we decide, well, it's not really what we need right now, then that we still have that ongoing problem with drop-ins at the Church at the Park site on Turner Road.
Okay. What do you think, Mr. Poole? Is this sounding better and better?
I think I'm not in much of authority to have an opinion on this, except for to say that I would hope all of you esteemed counselors would consider the ongoing costs to the parks. I know the city has already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars cleaning up the Cascade Gateway Park. And so long as no barrier drop-in services are provided at that location, it is an irresistible draw for illegal camping in the area. I don't think that we will see a cessation of that, maybe a reduction, but probably not a cessation of that activity until no barrier drop-in services are discontinued at that site. Just a consideration.
Great, thank you very much. Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you. I would like to ask a question of clarification, and perhaps Councilor Hoy and or interim city manager Rutherford can answer this. So Chris, if I heard you correctly, it sounds like there were basically two types of grant applications. Community Action got one, Church of the Park got the other. Church of the Park got the one that allows them to provide the mental health services for youth, which I think we all agree is sorely needed. Mental health issues are part of the problem for becoming homeless in the first place, especially if you're an at-risk youth. But what was it, and I think you weren't being asked to explain, but can you give me a little more background? What was it that Community Action Agency received? And will they now be providing a spot for homeless youth? Because we have a considerable homeless youth problem in our area. I want to help these kids. I want to get them housed. If we get people housed when they are youth, we may prevent a lifetime of dependency on homelessness provided services. Can you give me a little more background there, please?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor. The application from the Community Action Agency and from Church of the Park were both a comprehensive program to deal with homeless youth. So there's transitional housing services as well as the comprehensive support services that I mentioned. Community Action was approved for their whole package. So they got housing, so there will be additional housing for youth coming, as well as wraparound services. Church at the Park's application didn't qualify for the housing piece of it because of the nature of the housing they were suggesting, whereas Community Action, I believe, has either I think it's an actual house or some sort of residence for youth, and this was going to be micro shelters. And micro shelters, as you know, don't have a kitchen. They don't have, they're not a house. They're a shelter, and they're really important for certain situations, but it just didn't qualify under this federal program. And so we gave them what we could, but we couldn't give them the whole package. But Community Action got the whole package because their application really met all the criteria. So yeah, there will be additional services coming from Community Action to deal with for housing homeless youth, and with wraparound services, and then additional wraparound services from Church at the Park, but not with housing currently.
Okay. So if we don't give the money to Church of the Park to house the youth, we Community Action Agency will be in a position to house that same youth? Or I just want to make sure, are we denying youth an opportunity for housing because they didn't meet the grant criteria from Homeless Alliance? That's my only concern.
Sure. I mean, if we said yes to this, then yeah, more youth would be housed because they'd be in our micro shelters.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what I think they're planning to do is they're going to offer the services to youth who are housed elsewhere. So maybe they're in a shelter, maybe they're in a hotel, maybe they're camping. I don't know exactly who the youth are that they're planning to serve with their money off the top of my head. But yeah, more youth would be housed in micro shelters should we authorize that. Yeah, but there will be youth housed with Community Action, regardless of any action that we take as a council, because that's already moving forward.
Okay.
I hope that answered your question.
Councilor Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor. And this question is to anyone who could answer it, Mr. Poole, possibly City Council President Hoy, who's on the Homeless Alliance. When we're talking about youth, what age range are we discussing? I've kind of forgotten. Is it really less than 18 or is it kind of young adult?
The best answer is it depends.
Okay.
It can be 18 and under, but it also can be up to 24. Depends on which definition we're talking about. Generally, when I talk about youth, I'm talking about people 18 and under, but really it's 20. Mostly it's 24 and under.
Okay.
And I wish DJ was here, but if I recall correctly, it was running into the low 20s. So I can't remember if it was like 16 to 22 or 18 to 22 or somewhere in that kind of range.
Okay, anyone else? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Poole. Okay, Councillor Hoy, we've got a consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the approval of the consent calendar with the exception of item 3.2A pulled by Councillor Anderson and 3.3A pulled by Councillor Stapleton.
Okay.
Second.
Want to second it, Councillor Stapleton? Okay.
That leaves us with 3.1A, the July 11th, 2022 draft city council minutes. Item 3.2B, transfer of appropriations with the city's fiscal year 2023 budget for the Capital Jam event at the Jerry Frank Rotary Amphitheater. Item 3.3B, approval of the Bailey Ridge Park Master Plan. Item 3.3C, a claim settlement authorization. Item 3.3D, approval of the explanatory statement, modification of measure language, and ratification of publication of ballot title for the Salem Community Capital Improvement Bond. Item 3.3E, purchasing from a city employee-owned business. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Great. And Councillor Stapleton, I received a note and I'm not sure I understood it completely. Did you have one of these you wanted to declare a conflict on? Did I understand that or not?
It's one of the pulled items, Mr. Mayor. It's one of the pulled items.
Okay.
So she'll do it when we get to the polls.
Okay, sounds good. So that's a no. You don't have one right now. Okay.
Not right now. Thanks, though.
Okay. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I pulled item 3.2A before I saw that, recognized or remembered that the public hearing is going to be on the same issue. And I think one of the, how we pay for wastewater rates for folks who may not be able to afford it. And so if it's possible with the city attorney, I would just assume move this back into the consent calendar. So when we get to 4, we can say we've already passed this. So I don't know if I can do that, if the city attorney will allow me to do that or not. I know you can't pull them from the consent calendar unless you do it early. I don't know if you can put it back in the consent calendar if you do it at the.
Hey, Dan, can he put it back in?
Councillor Hoy can amend his motion.
Okay.
Okay, great, thanks. And that makes sense to me because that's what I wanted to talk about, that we're doing that. And now we can say we've done it when we get to 4.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to amend my motion to include item 3.2A in the consent calendar vote.
Okay.
Second.
Excellent. Okay, why don't we go ahead? Let's just vote quickly on the amendment. If the recorder please call a roll.
Councillor Nordijk.
Aye.
Councillor Barney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Anderson.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Leon absent. Councillor Gonzalez absent. Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, we're now to the amended motion. Is there any discussion on the consent calendar with Councillor Anderson's amendment? Okay, if the recorder please call a roll.
Councillor Barney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Anderson.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Leon absent. Councillor Gonzalez absent. Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordike,
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Okay, we have a public hearing. Let's see if there's a couple of them tonight, it looks like. We're going to start with 4A 22-293. If the recorder would kind of take us through that one.
Salem City Council will now conduct a public hearing to receive testimony concerning proposed fees and charges for utility service rates. There are no individuals signed up to testify. The hearing will begin with the staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez, are you the staff?
I am here for you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Share my screen and we can get started. All right. Everybody can see my presentation okay?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. I am Peter Fernandez, Public Works Director. Tonight, I am pleased to present our biannual utility rate proposal. My presentation is a summary of the financial analysis work that supports our recommendation, the details of which are included in the staff report and its attachments. I want to thank Alicia Blaylock and our financial consultant, Deb Gallardi, who were the lead staff in preparing the analysis. They are on the call tonight and will help me answer your questions. I also want to thank our management analysts, Merla Alvarez and Heidi Riedman, for their hard work on this effort. My presentation tonight will cover the items listed here. We started our public outreach effort by convening the Water Wastewater Task Force. The task force held 4 meetings this spring. All meetings were noticed and open to the public for viewing and comment. The task force membership represents the community and the utility's largest customers. Members were presented with details of the utility's finances, cost of service analysis, recommended rate changes, and other financial policy matters. They provided me with their recommendations, and they are before you tonight for review and adoption. Notice of the proposed rate changes were mailed to all 50,000 utility customers. The postcards included the utility's web address and information on tonight's public hearing. All public comments received to date are attached to the staff report or have been forwarded to you by the city recorder. The postcard also included information on the customer assistance programs. You see highlighted there at the bottom. Our recommended revenue slope increase for 2023 and 2024 is 5% for water, wastewater, and stormwater. The proposal addresses current inflationary pressures and creates a financial future that allows the utility to meet the community's needs. Beyond the revenue slope recommendation, changes are also proposed to other utility fees for service. These are summarized in the staff report. The next few slides provide an overview of how we prepared our rate proposal. In 2016, Council adopted policy C14, formalizing our practice of adopting new rates biennially and updating the cost of service analysis every 4 years. The proposal before you represents rates that are consistent with the utility's updated financial plan and the cost of service analysis. The utility's capital needs continue to be the main driver in the development of our rate proposals. Over the past 3 decades, we have been committed to investing in the maintenance and upgrade of the utility's infrastructure. To this end, we efficiently manage the utility's operations and construction projects so that utility capital funding can be allocated on a pay-as-you-go basis rather than from indebtedness. Beyond capital needs, the utility faces consistent increases in the cost of personnel, materials, and services. Planned annual rate increases allow the utility to address these added costs in an orderly fashion and limits the need for higher than anticipated or surprise rate increases. Since 2015, Council has supported the philosophy of small, consistent annual rate increases. The utility has thrived under this philosophy by substantially reducing its debt load and moving to a mostly pay-as-you-go capital financing system. This philosophy also helped us address the recent cyanotoxin and COVID-19 crises without the need for emergency rate increases. Salem's small and sustained annual rate increases, highlighted here in orange, have been substantially below the national average rate increases, highlighted here in blue. In recent years, our rate increases have also been below increases in the consumer price index. Unfortunately, increased costs have required us to recommend a higher rate slope than in years past. As you can see from this list, increases over the past year have impacted every aspect of our programs and services. I'll just linger on this slide for just a second so you can read through those. Our rate proposals are predicated on the goals of 1, maintaining an industry standard operating reserve, 2, maintaining our required debt ratios, 3, increasing our annual rate funded allocation to capital construction, and 4, maintaining a sufficient cash balance in the Utility Services Fund. As we analyzed our financial forecast model results against our 4 goals, it became apparent that our typical 3% annual rate increase would no longer be sufficient. Here are the results of our financial forecast model with the 3% rate increase out to fiscal year 2027. We tested the model with the planned rate-funded capital transfers and confirmed that that part of it meets the debt service ratios. As you can see from the model results, however, with a 3% rate increase, the utility fund goes negative in the 3rd year and deficits increase over time. Here's a summary of our financial model out to fiscal year 2032 now, illustrating the results of the recommended rate slope of 5% for the next 2 years. Note that we reduce future planned rate increases to 3.5%, and we test for the same capital transfers and debt coverage ratios as in the previous model. So the 5% is really for just for this upcoming 2 years, this upcoming biennium, and then the model shows that we can drop back down to 3.5%. In this case, the forecast meets all the tests. You may also note that as in the previous model, the fund balance decreases in the first 4 years, but recovers quickly in the 5th year. What we're talking about is this right here. You see the decrease, but then we recover very nicely right after that. We compared our proposed utility rates to what other Oregon cities charge for the same services. As this chart illustrates, Salem will continue to have one of the lowest utility rates in the Willamette Valley after the recommended increases are implemented. A technical update of the cost of service analysis was prepared and incorporated into the proposed rates. COSA updates assure that rates stay aligned with program budgets, investments, operations, and customer requirements. COSA, as opposed to the rate slope, addresses the cost of providing utility services to the different types or classes of customers. Applying the COSA framework impacts customer bills in different ways depending on what utility services they receive. COSA evaluates the costs associated with providing services and capital infrastructure. These costs are categorized based on whether they are provided to all customers, such as meter reading and billing, or to only one customer classification, such as industrial pretreatment monitoring. There are also cost gradations, such as the need for larger water mains for use by high-volume users, such as irrigators. These principles are applied to assure that all customers are charged only the costs that can be reasonably associated with the services that they receive. The following 3 slides summarize the cost of service changes for each of the 3 utility systems. The 4 COSA factors and their impacts related to water service are summarized in this slide. In the highlighted examples, construction and operation of the Frank Malden ozone treatment plant has increased the cost of water production. Because of this, the irrigation customer class and other water peak season users will experience higher water rates due to a greater share of the water production costs being attributed to peak demands. Wastewater system changes generally impact non-residential customer rates and bills. In the highlighted example, monitored industrial and institutional customers will see increases due to increased costs in solids handling and a greater share of the cost attributed to TSS. These customers are charged individually based on the strength of their wastewater, measured as BOD, biochemical oxygen demand, and the amount of total suspended solids, or TSS. COSA impacts to the stormwater system are related to account charges and water quality and quantity issues. These are described in the table located in the sidebar. Account charges recover specific costs that are generally stable over time, while the water quality quantity charge per EDU, equivalent dwelling unit, reflects the continued expansion in capital investment and inflationary impacts. The factors affecting customer rates and bills are simply increased costs in stormwater treatment and conveyance. We produce sample bills to provide council with a sense of how the overall rate proposal will affect customers. The following samples are for inside city customers only. And when we do all of the rate proposals and the COSA impacts, the COSA changes, this is where the rubber really hits the road, and this is what's important to see how it all fleshes out. So first, single-family residential. Single-family residential customers represent the overwhelming majority of the utilities customer base. The tan-colored columns highlight the percent change from the existing to the proposed charges for the next 2 years. Bills for average customers will increase by the recommended revenue slope of 5%. This will result in customer bills increasing by less than $5 per month. Low and high water use customers will see bills that are slightly above 5% due to increases in wastewater fixed charges or increased water volume charges. These changes result in increases of about $3 per month for low users and $9 per month for high users. Here are 3 examples of multifamily customers: a fourplex, a large 116-unit apartment complex, and a mobile home park. Fourplex customers will see bills that are slightly higher than the revenue slope due to increased costs in wet weather treatment, or about $6 per month. Bills for large multifamily and mobile home park will generally be slightly lower than the recommended revenue slope. You'll note that there won't be any more animations. I figured I've trained you enough on how to read these things. So bills for commercial and public customers are slightly higher than the recommended revenue slope in the first year, primarily due to wastewater and stormwater charges. So you see a large EDU, commercial, a small EDU. So this is a large EDU is large parking lots, large roof, versus a smaller mom and pop or a smaller building, and then public at the bottom, which are state office buildings and school district facilities. You can see the differences there. Industrial bills will vary, some above, others below, the recommended revenue slope because of the diversity of customers and because they are billed based on their actual wastewater flows and loads. In the 2 example customer bills illustrated here, the first will see their bills increase by less than the recommended revenue slope, while the second example customer will experience higher than recommended increases in the first year, but be right on the recommended slope in the second year. Would you take a look at that for just a second? And you can see the differences in the water usage. Industrial 1 is significantly higher use and higher strength sewer than customer 2. So you can see the differences in their bills because of those variables. Institutional customer impacts also vary for the same reasons as industrial. Here are 2 example bills. The bill impacts for irrigation customers are the highest of all customer types. This is driven by the increase in peak demand costs and the completion of the inside city only rate discount for the water rights sale to Hillsborough. So the previous COSAs applied all of that revenue to inside city customers. That was a policy decision that was made 6 years ago. They have paid their final bill. So now, as the COSA changes, irrigators especially get a very substantial increase in the first year, and you see that here. In closing, I want to briefly describe our customer assistance programs. The utility offers 4 programs that assist customers who may need help with paying their bills. Payment arrangements are provided to customers needing a little extra time to pay their current utility bill. Customers can set up a payment arrangement for their current charges by simply calling customer services. The Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program is a new but one-time funded federal program administered by Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency. The program provides qualified single-family residential households up to $1,000 to pay their utility bills and up to $2,000 if services have been discontinued. The Utility Rate Relief Program is our oldest and most established assistance program. Qualified elderly or disabled customers are provided with a 40% discount off the fixed wastewater rate and exempts their accounts from the streetlight and city operating fees. The Emergency Utility Assistance Program provides residential customers experiencing a short-term need for payment assistance of up to $500 toward their utility bill. Customers are qualified for assistance through St. Vincent de Paul, the Salvation Army, and the Community Action Agency. And this is the program that the $300,000 for the foreseeable future funds. And this was the item that, because it was done by council resolution separately from the utility rates, it showed up as a separate staff report. To make sure that the people who need it know about it, information on the customer assistance programs and contact information for customer service is provided in every past due notice to customers, up to and including the door hanger if an account is shut off. So we let people know at every point when we let them know that they're delinquent, that this service is available, and the door hanger is provided in English and in Spanish. Assistance to customers has steadily increased over the past few years. We appreciate the partnerships that we have with social service agencies and our donors. We are thankful for the task force and council support of the rate-funded portions of our programs, now at $300,000 per year. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for your attention tonight. Alicia, Deb, and I are ready to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Councilors, I do want to alert you, we received no one applying to speak to you this evening, although you did receive several written comments in your packet. So, Councilor Nordyke, we'll move to any questions you have of Mr. Fernandez, if that's in his crew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of questions. So I saw in the staff report that there's been a slow but steady increase in the number of individuals seeking utility assistance over time, which I take it is probably more a product of us getting the word out more than anything else, which is great. Thank you for increasing your outreach efforts. If we don't use the $300,000 every year, what happens to that money? Does it carry over? Is it used for other purposes? I'm just curious what happens if we don't use all $300,000.
Yeah, our plan, council, would be to carry it over and use every penny of it. So this is a 2-year proposal. So at the end of the second year, when we come back and do rates again, we'll see where we're at. If we need to fill up the coffers, we'll recommend more money. If usage has dropped down, then we'll recommend something different. But our intent is to use every penny to help people.
Terrific. And my second question, thank you for providing information in English and Spanish. What outreach efforts will the city do to make that information available to other communities who speak other languages?
Yeah, so we're well aware that, I forget what the number is, it goes up all the time, 50, 70 languages are spoken in the Salem Kaiser School District. Obviously, it's difficult to print information in every language. Spanish is the predominant second language in the community. The city in general and the utility in particular and the dispatch the Public Works Dispatch people are all, we subscribe to Language Line. So when people call and they need assistance, we can patch through an interpreter in dozens of languages to assist. So that's really the primary. We do get calls all the time. I see the dispatch log where, you know, it's interpreter assisted. So we do help people in any way that we can in that mode. If there was another substantial community and the council directed it, we would publish the notices in whatever other language. It's really just translating it and then just bringing it.
My one suggestion might be, you know, community hubs like Salem for Refugees might, if we just let them know that this is an option, then they can disseminate that information to help cover those other languages that are spoken but are not predominantly spoken, would be one suggestion, because they know where some of these folks are, and some of them may not know to call Public Works Dispatch. So reaching out to them and the Polynesian community might be a good suggestion. If Councillor Leon were present here, I would definitely bend her ear about that. But Thank you for answering my questions.
Yeah, Councillor, those are great suggestions. Margot Williams, who is our customer service manager, is sitting in the conference room listening in. So I'm sure she's taking notes. One thing that we always need to make clear, and you know, we've worked a lot with the community, is the assistance is for people that have accounts with us.
Right.
So often the people that need help are people that live in apartments. They are not our customers. Only the apartment owner is our customer. So we always need to make clear that the assistance is if you have an account with us. So you live in a house, you live in a duplex, you live in a fourplex, where you may have a separate meter. If you're in an apartment, then these agencies can also help you, but it's a different kind of help.
Okay, great. Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My main question was the one that was asked by Councillor Nordyke, but I have a couple others. Just so I and the public understand, it's $300,000 per year. And let's say you spend, like last year, you spent, I think, $126,000, or this year so far. So you double that, so you'll spend $270,000, say. 30,000 that will go to the next year. So next year there will be 330,000.
That is correct.
Okay. So, and does the council, do we have to authorize the 300,000 or some such figure every year, or have we authorized it now, like it rolls over every year?
You have authorized it for the next 2 years.
Okay.
And then when we come back with the next rate proposal, we'll see where we're at.
We'll see how long it is, how widely it's utilized. Then, with the exception of what you just talked about individual apartment owners can't apply, it has to be the owner of the building. Do you refuse people who come to you and say, hey, I need some help here? Is there a certain percentage of folks who apply who don't get the funding?
So we do not select people. So we use the Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul, and Community Action Agency. And we deliberately do that because we don't think it's good practice for the Salem Public Works Department to have information, that kind of information on people. So as soon as those agencies say, you know, these people qualify, they get $500 in their account. So if they'll have money for several months, depending on what their usage is.
Terrific. That's what I hoped and expected, and you're exactly right. The city should not be the one making these kind of decisions. So if people are vetted and they come to you, you're taking care of them.
Right.
And the final thing is,
Councilor, if I may, those are the people that really need the financial help. Sometimes, you know, that first program, the arrangement, sometimes just people need a couple of weeks. Or they had a tough month. You know, our customer service staff is empowered to really help people. So if they need a couple of weeks, or they need to, this last month, you know, could we break that down into some smaller payments for a long? Our staff is empowered to provide that, and we help people all the time with just kind of those smaller arrangements that really don't cost the utility any money.
No, and they also are not ones that are delving into people's personal financial backgrounds like the agencies that recommend you. So I think that's inappropriate. The last one I have is, maybe I misunderstood information I had before the meeting, but is there a difference between what this broad-based task force recommended and what the staff is recommending?
There is no difference.
Okay.
You and I had a conversation, and obviously there, you saw that some of the counselors on the call here, Hoy, Phillips, and Varney were on the task force. So I'll share the story that I shared with you. So the staff recommendation was for a 5 and 3.5, 5 the first year, 3.5 the second year for all three services. There was a lot of discussion at the task force about really the needs around having proper reserves and having a proper amount of cash and not stressing the utility in case we have future issues. So a number of different alternatives were provided to the task force and discussed, and the task force ultimately recommended, not the majority, but not unanimously, but the majority recommended what you have before you. I have always promised the task force that I will forward. The way we're set up is they recommend to the Public Works Director, and I have promised that I will always forward the recommendation. So that was the recommendation of the task force, and that's what's before you.
Okay, Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I actually served on the task force as well, and I didn't actually serve at the last meeting though. I do have a couple questions for you, but you spurred me on to share a little bit personally. And I shared this with the chair of the committee, which was Councilor Hoy. But I grew up actually extremely poor and had several instances in my life where I lived for prolonged periods of time without water. And it was really quite an interesting personal experience for me to serve on the task force, because it was actually quite triggering for me to deal with the memories of all of that, and to be in a room where people maybe didn't have the same experience as I did. And, you know, I had the conversation with Chris, and he's always so gracious. You know, I can't save the world. As counselors, I think we all have that mentality, and you just got to kind of pick and choose. And it was really a lot for me emotionally to serve on there. So that last meeting, I asked our alternate to step in for me, and that was good for me personally. So I trust completely the other counselors that were on that task force. And so I, of course, will be rooting for this to go move forward as it is. But I did have a couple of questions, and I apologize because my puppy was over here demanding to be let out. So I had to step away during your presentation. But did you talk about the fact that as the task force, while I was there, we did remove the restart fee for folks? Was that in your presentation and I just missed it when I stepped out?
It was not, Counselor. You know, as it is, I had timed myself. I was already at 14 minutes. So yeah, I couldn't present everything, but I appreciate you bringing that up. So yes, one of the recommendations that we discussed is the turn-on fee, which is $25. We and our customer service manager had waived it a lot over time, and I think we had waived it during COVID, and we just decided to formalize that. So that was a recommendation of the staff of the task force, and it is in the staff report that it seems silly that people who are struggling to pay their bill would then be hit up with another $25. So we've recommended to remove that. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it was really important to me to highlight that tonight, because it was one of the things that I was proud to do while I was there, that kind of helped move my experience forward a little bit, but yet, you know, we won't get to where I would love to be in probably in my lifetime as far as how we view water in our communities, but this is a really good step in that direction. My last question for you was that, did you see a reduction in shutoffs with the utility relief fund over the past couple of years?
You know, I will call on Alicia Blaylock, who's on the call. And I know Margot's sitting next to her in the conference room, so I'm sure they're conferring because I don't have that at my fingertips. So let's see if Alicia has the answer to that.
Sorry to put you on the spot. I apologize.
No, thank you. This is what this is what public hearings are all about.
I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm sorry, I don't have that on my fingertips.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's all that I had. Thank you so much.
Okay. Counselor Phillips?
Thank you, Mayor Bennett. Thank you, Director Fernandez. And thank you, Counselor Stapleton, for mentioning the fact that the fee was waived for people who get reconnected. I think that's an important step and it's worth highlighting. And thank you for your service on that board. Director Fernandez, I'm going to kind of try to summarize what I remember the final vote. I mean, the majority did propose this 5% and 5% vote. But even though the staff recommendation was for in year 1, 5%, and in year 2, 3.5%, the actual final vote, to the best of my recollection, was that the second place, not the majority decision, but the second place decision wasn't actually for the 5 and 3.5. It was for my motion to do 5.5 and then 3.5. So there was really a clear majority for doing even more. And it wasn't just, those of us who were city councilors. It was the citizen members and people who were there that testified on the importance of having those reserve funds there. So, I think we were all a bit concerned about just 5.5 and 3.5 because it did put us at risk of being in the red and not having sufficient reserve funds. So just help. Is that what you remember too? Is that those two were the kind of the highest two?
Yeah. So the three that sort of contended, if you will, was the staff recommended 5 and 3.5, and then Councilor, you had brought up the 5.5 and then 3.5, and then there was sort of the vote that went to 5 and 5. I don't recall what the votes were for some of the others. I do recall, I will say that I was pleasantly surprised that the task force, this is the first time in my experience that the task force has actually recommended something higher than what the staff had brought in. So I did poll I did informally poll the members and said, well, would there be support, since it wasn't unanimous, would there be support for the 5 and 3.5? And just by head nodding, and 3 of the 4 of you were there, so you could. And Councilor Young, unfortunately, is absent today. She was there, but I think there was consensus, unanimous consensus, around 5 and 3.5. If the council had concerns over the 5 and 5, and I certainly, I asked if I could report that. So here I am reporting it. The conversations were really around the 5 and 3.5 is really sort of the bare minimum. And if you recall that, and I can bring up the slide, but you'll recall that the 5 and 3.5 got us through sort of that year 3, year 4 tight point, but it was only like $1 million, less than $1 million. The 5.5, 3.5, your recommendation, your proposal does a lot better. So that half point at the beginning makes a big difference, and the 5 and 5 really puts us in very good stead over the long term, and virtually assures that barring some fantastic emergency or catastrophe, that we can get back on kind of a steady. 3s don't work anymore, but 3.5s do work for into the future, hopefully for another decade, like we've done before.
Thank you for that confirmation, Director Fernandez. And just nobody wants to raise rates if it's not necessary, but it's necessary. Costs have gone up, and having safe, good water readily available consistently is super important. I certainly thought my motion was worth entertaining on the subcommittee, but after listening to the robust debate by people who had served on that committee for certainly longer than I have, I'm not making any motions tonight. I think that 5 and 5 puts us in a stronger, more robust position to make sure that we can meet the obligations we have to the city at large.
Thank you, Councilor.
Okay. Very good. Any further? Yes, Councilor Varney.
Thank you. This was obviously the first time I've been on this task force, and I wanted to say thank you to the staff. There was lots of information to absorb. I am supportive of this 5 and 5. After listening, well, there's so many things right now that are more uncertainties in terms of our weather. Water has become the new limiting factor. And one of my concerns is that we don't know what the future necessarily holds. And boy, when we had our, the cyanobacteria issue, it was helpful that we had some reserves to help us. And I think about how the distance our water has to travel between Guerin Island and Salem, and the fact that those pipes are older, et cetera. There are just so many things that could that could happen. I just felt better having that little bit of cushion there.
Very good. Any further? Okay. There's nothing more than I'm going to close the public hearing. Councillor Hoy, do you want to give us a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move we adopt resolution number 2022-43 with exhibit establishing fees and charges for utility service rates, water, wastewater, and stormwater effective January 1st, 2023 and January 1st, 2024, and approve the allocation of up to $300,000 of utility revenue annually beginning in 2023 for the Emergency Utility Assistance Program.
Okay. I'll second it.
Thank you. I think that's all been said here tonight. We had this is, if you've never been on this committee, it is probably the most robust subcommittee we have, full of, don't come there thinking you're going to just sit back and you've got to really be on your game and paying attention. But when you're done, you feel really comfortable with knowing how our system works, what it really takes to financially do this. Look, nobody wants to raise rates. Nobody sitting here tonight wants to raise rates, but the fact and a lot of the feedback we have gotten is from the community has said the costs are going up. Don't raise our rates. Well, the reason we have to raise the rates is because costs are going up. This is a separate utility that has to survive. It has to financially survive, and this is I think the best course to make sure that happens and to make sure that we have good quality drinking water and sewer services going forward. So I 100% support this motion and thank the staff for all their great work on it.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, thank all of the members of this. This is one of the most difficult committees to serve on. Really appreciate you all agreeing to do it and understand. I think you're walking away with probably as good an education on the fundamentals of city operation as anyone will have. So I thought that I really appreciate you doing it. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support this too for a number of reasons. One of them being what Councillor Hoy was talking about in the the committee and how they met and the robust discussion they had. And I can testify as serving for 18 months as the chair of the SDC committee, Deb Gallardi, I see you there. That was another very, very robust discussion, and it had wide panoply of a range of people who were there. And it's the same sort of group that made up the wastewater, or not the wastewater, the committee that Councillor Hoy was talking about. Also, maybe my math is wrong, but it looks to me like the difference in the average difference is maybe $5 a month for the single house, the single family homes. And if you look at that, that's $60 a year. You divide 60 into 300,000 that you get every year, and that's 5,000 families who can apply for this. So I hope my math is right. I think Director Fernandez is nodding his head. But in that kind of situation, this is there for people who are having trouble with the rates. And so I would urge anybody to make this application through the nonprofits that you can find on the notices that send. And if the nonprofits recommend you, we're going to pay it. And we can do that for 5,000 families per year. So I think that's terrific.
Great. Thank you, Counselor. Any further comment? Counselor Phillips.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bennett. And just to reiterate, I mean, this has to happen now. I mean, there has to be some rate increase. And part of that is because we absorbed the body blows of the cyanotoxins and the COVID-19 pandemic without significantly raising rates. So, you know, we've done as well as we could until now, but they've got to go up a little bit, 5%, according to like where general inflation is at. We're well underneath that. We're well below the national trends. I think the city of Salem is well managed and we're doing our best, but it's got to go up a little bit right now.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if the recorder would please call the roll.
Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Anderson.
Aye.
Counselor Phillips.
Aye.
Counselor Leung absent. Counselor Gonzalez absent. Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordike.
Aye.
Counselor Barney.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councilors.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. We're going to move on then to 4B. That's 22-310. It's our next public hearing. So if the recorder would take us into that one.
The Salem City Council will now conduct a public hearing to review the planning administrator's decision approving a tentative subdivision plan and urban growth area declaration, case number SUB UGA 22-03 for property located at 1374 Crowley Avenue Southeast. The criteria applicable to the tentative subdivision is SRC 205.010D, and the applicable criteria for the urban growth declaration is SRC 200.030D. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable criteria or other criteria which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing in person or in writing, or failure to provide statements or evidence with sufficient specificity to provide the parties and the city council an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. The hearing will begin with a staff presentation, followed by testimony from the following. Individuals speaking on behalf of the applicant have a combined total of 10 minutes, and we have 3 individuals signed up to speak on behalf of the applicant. The applicable neighborhood association is limited to 5 minutes. And then the applicant may have up to 5 minutes rebuttal testimony limited to issues raised during the public testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Olivia.
Good evening, Olivia Diaz, Planning Division. I'm here to present subdivision case Urban Growth Preliminary Declaration 2203 for 1374 Crowley Avenue Southeast. I would like to, as noted before, correct an error in the staff report that the property is in Ward 3 and that the notice was sent to Morningside Neighborhood Association and posted on the subject property. The request is to subdivide 9 acres into 46 single-family lots. There was a request for an alternative street standard for increased grade and increased block length, and then an urban growth preliminary declaration permit to determine utilities needed for the area. This is a vicinity map showing the subject property. It's located off of Crowley, has a small portion that touches Crowley Avenue to the west. It's near east of Commercial Street, south of Hillpicker Park. And then Boone Road is located to the south. The subject property is zoned residential agriculture, shown in green. To the east and west of the property is single family residential, showed in yellow. The property to the south is in orange is multifamily residential. And then you can see in the red and the pinks along Commercial Street, which is our retail commercial and general commercial designations. We have an aerial photo of the subject property. You can see the property wraps around 3 single-family dwellings. The existing property does have a single-family dwelling located on the north of the property. Here is the lot layout of the subdivision. As you can see, there's a large lot, lot 46, which is hard to see, located at the top of your screen. That is going to retain the single family home, and then the lots to the south connect in the street. Denali would connect all the way down to Boone. We have another aerial photo kind of showing the grade and the trees of the subject property, and a little bit better aerial showing the single family homes. We did receive some public comments prior to the planning administrator's decision from Morningside neighborhood and 12 individuals who commented mostly regarding traffic, Crowley Avenue safety, some tree removal, stormwater facilities, and some other items. Those are all addressed in your planning administrator's decision as an attachment to your staff report, and also addressed in your staff report. Staff recommends that the council affirm the planning administrator's decision and approve the application. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll begin this portion of public hearing. We have 3 representatives from the applicant. You've got 10 minutes. I'm perfectly happy to either divide it up into 5 3-minutes or have you just manage your 10 minutes. Mr. Wooten, I have you on first.
Okay, I will lead off.
Okay.
I'm Hayden Wooten. I'm the Senior Land Use Planner with Reese & Associates. I will be speaking on behalf of Mike Smith, who's with me tonight. He is the applicant for the Jackson Ridge subdivision. I'd like to start by thanking Olivia for her staff report. She has been incredibly helpful throughout this entire process. It is a complicated site, and so we are greatly appreciative of all the help staff has provided. There have been a lot of different things that we needed to work through. And so we appreciate their willingness to have the communication, to have the conversation, and find a solution that is acceptable to the applicant and make sure that we can check off all of those criteria that make a good subdivision. And so with that, I would like to note in the staff report for tonight's meeting, there's a line that says we are requesting to reduce the right-of-way of our local streets to 52 feet. We have no plans to do that. We plan on building a TSP compliant 60-foot wide right-of-way section. And so other than that, I think myself, Kelly Sandow, and Dave Reese, the other members of the applicant's engineering team, would just like to answer any questions you guys might have, and really just make sure that we can maybe ease any concerns there are with this project.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions for the applicant? Yes, Councilor Phillips.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for being here tonight, obviously, to answer questions during this public hearing. You guys were required to do a traffic analysis for this, correct?
Yes, we were.
And did you guys find any issues related to Roy Vaughn, which is near this property, but it's not, it's not directly touching this property?
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna let Kelly Sandow go into a little bit more information, but to kind of hit the bullet points of the study, the intersection of Roy Vaughn and commercial was a part of this study, and there were no issues found with its ability to serve the population past development. So once we're developed, we shouldn't see any issues.
And then a follow-up question, thank you for that. What about making, like if you're on Roy Vaughn headed towards commercial and you want to make a left-hand turn onto commercial. So if you're going from Roy Vaughn and turning onto commercial headed south, was there any issue on that in terms of safety or how difficult that left-hand turn is?
So this will definitely be a question I will rely on Kelly to answer. She will be able to give you a lot more detailed information.
Yeah. So hello, I'm Kelly Sandow with Sandow Engineering, the applicant's traffic engineer. So our evaluation looked at all turning movements into and out of Roy Vaughn, and the city has a standard, which is a level of service, which is based on the delay a vehicle will make or the vehicle has making that turn, and the city has a standard of E. And so our measure that during the PM peak hours, we don't exceed the E, where we meet the city standard. Now, during the peak times, there is a little bit of queuing issues, not issues, but vehicles do queue up and they do have to, find the gap in traffic to be able to make that maneuver. But I was out there watching during the PM peak hour. I personally went out and watched for the 2 hours in the AM and 2 hours in the PM, and cars that were currently making that maneuver didn't seem to have too much difficulty finding a gap in traffic. The traffic signals that are on to the north and to the south, when they go red for the main line, it kind of provides a little gap for people to be able to get out and make that left turn. So.
And then, if I may, I have a similar question regarding Roy Vaughn. Roy Vaughn, it's mentioned there's like a non-ideal site distance because of the grade at Roy Vaughn. It's a steep hill, pretty close to that intersection of like 15% grade. What impact would that steep grade, or what did your traffic analysis show with that? Because it's not normal. It's an unusual steep hill.
Right. So even though it's a steep hill, so when you're getting to the top of the hill, it's hard to see up and over. But once you're at the top, you have adequate line of sight to be able to see commercial streets. So if somebody's stopping to wait to get out, vehicles that are traveling to commercial can see and can stop in time. So I didn't see any particular issue with having these additional trips from this development be added to Roy Vaughn. There's signage to warn people that there is an issue with the site distance. The city can continue to monitor if it is an issue. Reducing the speed helps. Maybe some speed humps to help reduce speed. That helps with that line of sight to improve. If you slow cars down.
And then help me understand. Thank you for that. Where are you thinking about the possibility of speed humps?
That would have to be. That a study would have to be done to specifically look at where the recommendations for the speed humps would be, but it would be as you would be coming up to the hill to make sure that people aren't going up the hill too fast, because that's the issue is your line of sight. The line of sight is important because that's the distance that you need to be able to perceive and react to somebody or something in the roadway to avoid a collision. And that distance increases the faster that you're going. So if it is determined to be an issue with increased traffic, reducing the speed going up the hill would be kind of the major factor there. So.
And thank you. And my final question, if I may, is not so much traffic. I've skimmed through this before, but are you guys removing any significant trees?
No significant trees will be removed at this time.
Thank you. I have no more questions.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple questions. When I'm looking at the plan and with the north-south street, I don't know what the name of it is. It just kind of ends at the rest of your the northern part of your property with the single family house on it. So I think I can probably presume that at some point, somebody's going to come back to us saying we want to develop that part of the property too. Otherwise, you would have made it a cul-de-sac. Is that correct?
Yes, those streets were extended to essentially the southern boundary of what would become Lot 46 for the potential of future development, that they could extend and connect any public streets they need to serve future.
Sure. Okay, thank you. And I don't know if this one is for you folks or for staff. All we say is the grades are more than 12%. And then I saw someplace else that said you can't increase the grades over 12% for more than 200 feet. So I'm just kind of curious, are there more than one 200-foot space where the grades are going to be more than 12%, or is it one place?
Yeah, I can go ahead and answer that. So it will be two spaces, two little portions of the street. Primarily, both of those will be towards the end of the streets. The site itself is in an area of significant slopes, and so we did need some relief, hence the alternative street standards. We do have a condition of approval, though, that any street that we design and put forward is acceptable to the fire marshal, and we still need fire access.
Terrific,
So
thank you.
we will be essentially confirming its safety during the engineering process.
I would point out, unfortunately, at least from my understanding, there's two ends to the street. Which end are you talking about? The south end, the north end?
The north end.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions for the applicant? Okay, I'm going to call then on Alan Meyer on behalf of the Morningside Neighborhood Association.
Hi, Mayor, City Councilors. I live at 1476 Strong Road Southeast, and I'm currently the Vice Chair and the Traffic Chair for the Morningside Neighborhood Association. So we're not opposed to the development per se, but we're very concerned about the safety, traffic safety situation that will not be created, but will actually be exacerbated. In a minute or two, I'll talk about the intersection at Strong Commercial and Roybon, which is our primary concern. There's also concern about infiltration in the neighborhoods, though. I'm going to go through this for your benefit, but if you would like to go east on Kubler and you don't want to make a left turn from Roybon onto Commercial, you would need to go through Councilor Phillips' neighborhood. Specifically, you'd need to take Denali to Boone Road to Kensington Street to Wickshire Avenue to Southampton Drive to Alex Avenue to Forsyth Drive to Battle Creek Road, finally then Battle Creek Road to Kubler and left on Kubler. And that's really the only way to do it, going through the neighborhoods without making a left turn on Roybon. So I'm going to share my screen, I hope. I haven't done this before. So can you see that?
No, not yet.
Should be seeing, or maybe it didn't take.
You want to try it again?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Okay. So this is the Commercial and Roybon intersection that we've been talking about. Before you get here, though, there are issues with Roybon, which is admittedly a substandard street, and there are residences on both sides as you get near the top of the hill, no sidewalks. The pavement on the westbound lane is very poor. I drove it today. So there are real issues with Roybon. The big safety concern for traffic is this intersection. If you're going to take Roybon and go north, it's not that bad other than the heavy traffic volume. There are 2 lanes of traffic. You do have the pedestrian crosswalk. There's also a bus stop here, which can obstruct view to the south. And it doesn't show too well here, but there's an entrance from a shopping center. Actually, it's the DMV, the Bottle Drop, and Physique Fitness, where cars will, to make a left turn, queue up here behind the pedestrian safety crossing, and then pop out when traffic allows. So that's what you have if you're turning to the north. If you're going south, you have all that, plus you have 2 lanes of oncoming traffic and a left turn lane. So you have so many things to watch that I personally would never make a left turn from Roybon onto Commercial. I don't want to risk my life to do that. Which then means all these other routes are going to be put to use. The neighborhood was concerned when both Roybon and Crowley were going to be connected. We're even more concerned if only Roybon. If Crowley is also connected, then there are ways you can work around the neighborhood through the shopping center, get up to Hillficker and make a left turn. It's not a protected left turn, but at least there is a signal there, and people have learned reasonably well how to deal with that. And at some point in the future, there will be a protected left turn there. So that's our concern. Maybe on paper, this meets whatever requirements the city has. I think anybody looking at this objectively would say this is a nightmare of an intersection. The city admitted that putting that crosswalk there made it worse for traffic safety. So I'm not a traffic engineer. I don't have all the data to support our recommendations, but at a very minimum, We think Crowley needs to be put through to provide the other possibility. The crosswalk ideally would be moved or eliminated because just looking at it, I don't understand why anyone would think that was a good location for a crosswalk. And then ideally, this would be signalized. There would be a signal here. I understand it's too close to some other streets, but I don't think we want to risk citizens' lives because of some rule about how close it is to another intersection. If it was signalized, then you wouldn't need the crosswalk and you would have controlled access onto commercial from Rybon. In addition, I don't know if you noticed the car here going into Jack in the Box. This gets congested when people are trying to get in and out of Jack in the Box.
Thank you. I
Here.
think we'll have some questions for you, Mr.
Okay,
Manor.
anyway, that's it.
That's great. Thank you very much. Councilor Anderson? Tom, you're muted. Still
Can't hear. He's on mute.
So
There
I
we
mute
go.
myself for all my thank yous, Mr. Meyer and Mayor and the Mayor, Mr. Mayor and the Mayor. But I do want to point out that the reason that crosswalk is there, that we had a young girl was killed there who was trying to cross the street there. And it was a situation where one car stopped and the next car to the inside didn't stop. And she thought she had the way and she was running across the street and she got killed.
Right, I understand that. And I was a member of the pedestrian safety committee, but that's not the place it should go.
No, but we've got it there right now. And I don't know if it should be moved or not, but that's why it was there. And maybe it was an awkward spot, but that's also where a teenager lost her life. Thanks.
That's right. Councilor Phillips. Tom, are you done? Okay, Councilor Phillips.
Yeah, thank you, Alan, for being here tonight and for your work as traffic chair and in the Morningside Neighborhood Association, and for talking about this for a long time, even before this application happened. So, thanks for having a good presentation tonight. Did you have more that you wanted to say about that turning into Jack in the Box?
Well, one of the neighbors has been communicating with me about how the traffic gets backed up there. And so the traffic trying to get onto commercial prevents people who turn onto Roivon from getting into the Jack in the Box parking lot. And then there's also the strip mall on the other side. So you have entrances to two businesses very close to that intersection, which obviously only makes it worse. We've dealt with you a long time, Trevor, and on Reed Road, to me, this is like Reed Road. The rules may say you don't have to do it, but concern for the citizen says you should do it. And we figured out a way to do Reed Road. To me, this is probably of equal importance.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you for being here. And I know that you were aware of that, the young person who lost their life in that location. I know you're not arguing for no crosswalk. You're just talking about the difficulty, at that one location. And in your opinion, a signal there would help tremendously.
Well, it would eliminate the concern. You'd be able to safely make a left turn. Yes.
Okay. Were there any other points that you really wanted to make? I mean, I think you laid out kind of the mental picture of what it takes if somebody wants to go, south, or to get out, Kubler going east. They've got to, go through all those, double-digit number of surface streets.
Right.
Did you have any other big points that you wanted to make? I think
that's it. We're not concerned about the development per se, and we know the developer didn't create this situation, but it is there and it needs to be dealt with.
Oh, I did have one last question. What do you think about that Roivon, that grade, the hill there? How much does that play a role in this?
Well, I don't travel that way normally, but I did today. And my concern would be if you're traveling west, the pavement is terrible. So you're likely to move into the left lane to avoid the pavement, which then you might meet an oncoming car coming up the grade that didn't realize you were there. So that needs to be addressed.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, anyone else have any questions for Mr. Meyer? Okay, Dan Atchison. Do we have, who do we have next on this thing?
If there's no one else signed up, you would give the applicant an opportunity for rebuttal. Actually, you do questions of staff. Do questions of staff, excuse me, do questions of staff and then give the applicant an opportunity for rebuttal.
Okay, great. Olivia, there you are. You've heard this discussion, Olivia, of this traffic problem, and looking at the at Mr. Meyer's exhibit, it really is pretty visible what that problem looks like. Can you just talk a little about what the traffic, I mean, that really does look like an interesting set of problems. How do we get around that as a planning problem?
I think I would defer to Tony Martin, who's here to speak on traffic.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Tony Martin, Assistant City Traffic Engineer. So when we install the pedestrian crossing safety island, we have to put it in the center turn lane. Right. And it can go on the north side or the south side. And if it's on the north side, then it blocks the left turn into Roy Vaughan. And so they would be making that turn from the through movement, or we would have to restrict it completely. Moving it to the south side, it does make it a little more challenging, like Mr. Meyer alluded to. People that pull out of the bottle drop, they jump into the center turn lane and then they wait for a gap. That's what they used to do at Roy Vaughan. So it's interesting that what I heard was there's a lot of safety issues. It's dangerous. It's more dangerous now than it was before. And I went and pulled the crash reports to see what it looked like. So I pulled the past 5 years. So it's 2016 through 2020. That's all the data we have. The median was installed in summer of 2019. So we have about a year and a half of data since it was installed. Prior to it going in, there were 10 crashes, turn movement crashes, left turns.
Okay.
Since the pedestrian island went in, a year and a half, there have been 0 crashes. And I think it's because people are more aware. I mean, there's this island out here and they're looking at traffic and they're, and I can't explain it, but there's been no crashes since the median island went in.
Okay. And that's coming out of the that's the one on the west side where you're turning out behind the median. Is that kind of it?
Yeah, you're turning around it.
Okay. Huh.
You have to turn around it. And you don't get to make a left turn and pop into the center lane and wait. You have to wait for a bigger gap in traffic.
Do you have any kind of caution signing out there that it might have added to this?
The island has rapid rectangular flashing beacons, which are pedestrian activated. There's all kinds of PED signs approaching in both directions on Commercial Street.
Okay.
And, I don't live in that part of town, but I go there pretty frequently and I almost always see it being used. It gets used a lot.
Yeah. What's the speed out there?
I believe it's 35 posted, but you know how the difference between
commercial
posted
is 40.
Is it 40? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's posted 40 and, with the amount of traffic, they may only be able to go 40.
Okay. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Martin, for your information. Can you talk to us a little bit about Roy Vaughan and what the plan is? Is there a plan for dealing with the pavement and the condition of Roy Vaughan itself, unrelated to this development?
That would be a maintenance project. If Director Fernandez is here, maybe he could speak to it. But that would be a pavement maintenance issue.
There he is.
I don't have any information at the moment as to what, where Roy Vaughan sits. If we're going to do something, it would probably be, some amount of slurry or a little paving. That's really all we do on that kind of local street.
And
it's a little concerning. People are leaving their, go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Sorry. And the issue of the traffic signal on Commercial at Roy Vaughan, I understand that that's not an option because of its distance to another intersection. Is that correct?
It's not that it's not an option. It's that the closer the traffic signals are together, the harder it is for our traffic signal engineers to make them flow along commercial. So Roy Vaughan is about 650 feet from Kegler's. So ideally we want about a quarter mile spacing for signals to be able to get the traffic to progress. It makes it more challenging. The other part is that it doesn't meet the traffic volume warrants for a signal at this time. And so we want to do that. And then the third thing is it's not in any CIP or funded, and it would have to compete with all the other needs and desires in the city.
Thank you.
Okay. For Councillor Stapleton, did you want to?
Oh, thank you. I was going to comment on the reduction in crashes or accidents. I think that it's been proven that the more obstacles you have, whether it's skinnier lanes or buffeted bike lanes or pedestrian crossings, the more aware drivers have to be, and they slow down and they start paying attention. The wider the lanes, the bigger the boulevards, the more carefree and easygoing people are, and the faster they drive and the more careless they are. So I think that this is a really good study for us to think about as a council, especially as we head into our TSP update on just how we're going to make our roads safer for folks. It's really interesting to get that data.
Yeah, that was, I agree with you. That's a very interesting, kind of unanticipated outcome. I think it's great. Councillor Phillips?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the comments from Councillor Stapleton, and thank you, Tony, for being here tonight. I think, having the real world data that there's been no crashes in that time period since they put in the crosswalk. I mean, a crosswalk was needed between Kegler and Kubler. People used to jaywalk there. I mean, I still see them occasionally doing it, but it's much, much less. I mean, there was just, no other alternative. So I can't comment on, where a better location would have been, but it's certainly utilized. And I think it has helped in the sense of making it safer for pedestrians. But kind of that issue, that kind of the rate limiting thing here is getting out of that part of the community. I mean, it's not as big of a deal if you're a mile into this neighborhood to get out on Battle Creek, but it seems like a lot to go all the way through if you're trying to get onto I-5. I just, with the buses that stop there and trying to make that left-hand turn, I envisioned that this is one of those things that even though it's not significant according to the transportation analysis, as there's more and more infill, I'm concerned that, eventually we're going to get to a threshold where it is a concern. I agree with the testimony of Mr. Meyer from the Morningside neighborhood. I would not go that way and make a left-hand turn. I would only make a right. And the other major street that's south of there is Boone. And at Boone, you can't make a left-hand turn. You have to go right. So it's just challenging. And I mean, I don't know, what suggestions do you have for people that feel uncomfortable making a left-hand turn there due to the imperfections and or just deficits of that intersection? Like, how would you make a left if you didn't want to go left there at Roy Vaughan?
I guess if I lived there and I needed to get to I-5 to go northbound or, get someplace south, I would probably make a right turn. Drive up to Hillficker, make a left on to Sunnyside, and then come back around Kegler's.
Yeah,
it's a little out of direction, but I will do that instead of, especially if it's a long wait and there's a lot of traffic. It's challenging. There's no question about it.
Okay.
In time, let me just say, in time, we will have extensions to the north. And, we, the city, in the day, we kind of made a mistake with the properties to the east because there's only one public street connection. There's 4 cul-de-sacs that abut this property. And so if those streets were stubbed, we would be having a very different conversation.
Yeah. It's a very good point. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
That is a really good point.
Yeah. Do we have any sense or predictability on when there's more connectivity related to this development? Like, I think there's a mention in the staff report that eventually it'll connect to Crowley, but do we know when that'll happen?
We don't. It's all development driven and economy driven.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any further questions for staff? All right. Mr. Wooten, you have 5 minutes to rebut if you'd like to.
I'll keep this quick. I'd like to just reiterate 2 points Tony made. One is that the proposed development is restricted by existing access and street stubs. And so we tried to create as much traffic flow as we could given the situation we have. And I understand that there are complications at some specific intersections, but as Kelly has kind of noted in her study, those intersections are still operating within their service level. The other point that Tony made that I really liked is that future development should help ease this issue, whether it be through additional SDCs generated by that development or the existing street connections like to Crowley, or we're extending to Nally. That's another potential street connection further to the north that could help alleviate any traffic created by this development. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, I am going to close the public hearing unless there's anything further and call on Councillor Hoy for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move City Council affirm the planning administrator's decision approving the subdivision tentative plan and urban growth area preliminary declaration case number SUB-UGA 22-03.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know this isn't ideal and because of some of the traffic situations. Once again, we're left with dealing with the result of maybe some earlier decisions that that didn't set us up for the best situation in terms of having those streets surrounding this property turned into cul-de-sacs rather than future connections, which is what should have happened. It's pretty frustrating, but I don't see that results in a reason to deny this. I do think there's hope in the future that this will get better based on some of the things we've discussed with some other connections. And so while it's not an ideal situation, I do think we need to approve it.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, if the recorder please call the roll.
Oh, Mayor Bennett.
I'm sorry, who'd I miss there? Oh, there you are, Trevor.
Thanks. So thank you, Mayor Bennett. And, thanks for the motion, Councillor Hoy. I'm torn on this one. I mean, this is, the ward that I represent. I know this area well. It's tough because I met with staff before, I called this up. It's tough to find significant criteria, from staff's point of view with which to push back on this. There's no removal of any significant trees. And this doesn't violate the transportation analysis. I think I'm just frustrated by the, I assume that we might be able to get a traffic light here. Mainly I just wanted to highlight the problem, that the community is going to be facing here so that, people who have voiced this concern before could be heard. But I don't know if I'm just grumpier tonight because I have COVID. But I plan to vote no. I'm not real confident on the grounds I'm making that vote. But that left-hand turn, I'm glad to hear that we haven't had crashes with the pedestrian crosswalk. But it's just, this is a weird with Kubler and commercial coming together at a right angle. It's unusual trying to get out of here. And this additional traffic's going to be challenging. So mainly I'm just, trying to voice that as a protest vote. Please pay attention to this, my colleagues, moving forward, maybe in the TSP or at another time. We may need some help.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, anyone else? We'll call then on the recorder, please call a roll.
Councillor Anderson.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Nay.
Counselor Leung absent. Counselor Gonzalez absent. Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordike.
Aye.
Counselor Varney.
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. And we will then go to special orders of businesses. It is item 3.3A from Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I wanted to start off with declaring a potential conflict of interest. As you know, this is in my ward, but more so it is even on the street that I live on. And so I wanted to be upfront about that in the beginning, but I did want to move staff recommendations, and that is about developing a conceptual design for a road diet on Capitol Street Northeast between Center Street Northeast and Market Street Northeast in order to add a buffered bike lane.
Second.
Second by Hoy.
Thank you so much. This is something that I've actually been working on since before I was even thinking about being a city councilor. Mainly because I do live here and I experience this road. And as you know, in this area, it's 3 lanes wide and it is a straight shot and there are very long city blocks. And so there is a lot of speeding that happens. There's a lot of racing that happens. And there's not a lot of pedestrian crossings and there are no bike facilities at all. And so in kind of the mirror to this is Summer Street. And on Summer Street, we do have bike lanes and they are used. And so people go into town on Summer Street or Winter Street, but coming back out on Capitol, there really is no protection for them. And I see so many folks go by. I see so many close calls with cars. So I'm just really thrilled about this. In my process before I was a city councilor, I talked to the Grant Neighborhood Association and the NEN Neighborhood Association, which Capitol Street borders both of those. They are both in full agreement that this needs to happen. So many of my neighbors, of course, are also enthusiastic about this idea. And as you saw in the staff report, the count shows that it can be a 2-lane road, just like Summer Street, its partner. So I'm really hoping that y'all support this and it can move forward and we can hopefully get this installed sometime very, very soon.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer an amendment to the motion. My amendment is twofold. I would replace the word buffered with the word protected. And I would also indicate that there should be no right turn lane from Capitol to Market.
Can I second that?
Sure.
Great. That sounds wonderful. As you all know me, I'm all for something like this. This is great. Thank you, Councilor Anderson.
Tom, could you explain the right turn?
Sure. Let's, I guess on the right turn lane, I will adopt the Gary Obery theory of traffic management. We had an issue back sometime on Broadway Street where the issue was, did we want to have a right turn lane on by Pine Street, I believe. And we ended up not asking for that or approving that without the right turn lane. And as you can see, Mr. Obery also sent in an email today or sometime on this issue. I have not spoken to him, but it sure looks like his theories are about the same. And if we have, even with that no right turn lane, we have 2 lanes that are going north. So you could have somebody turn right from the lane that is furthest east and still have traffic that could move straight north on the lane that is further west. That's number 1. Number 2, with respect to the protected bike lane, there's a big difference between buffered, which is a line on the street, and protected, which is some sort of bollards or something that indicates that this is that separates the cars from the bikes. That's much more effective in terms of encouraging bicycle traffic. And if you had the right turn lane, what you'd end up with is the standard ones you see where even if it was a protected bike lane, it would stop at where the right turn lane comes in, and then we get back to a buffered bike lane, which is going to create a lot of problems I would think. I ride my bike out to the Croc Center all the time. And when I go, I kind of sneak through the city. But when I come back, I ride on Winter Street because it's got at least a buffered bike lane. And so people expect there to be that. And if we've got the South Way going with the bike lane, we ought to have the North Way going with the bike lane. And if we're going to put in bike lanes, for a whole lot of reasons, they ought to be protected lanes rather than buffered lanes.
Councillor Hoy, did you still?
Yeah, I took my hand down, but thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm just thinking out loud on this whole left turn lane or right turn lane on Market. It's something that already exists. I do think that there's a way to fashion it that you'd have a green box to go, so the buffered bike lane or protected bike lane, whichever it is, would continue. And it's a really heavily utilized turn. So that's my only concern is that I wouldn't want to see this whole project turned on its head because of the elimination of something that already exists when I'm not sure what we're gaining from removing it. And I'm not an expert in this, so I guess I would like to hear from staff at some point on that, maybe through this course of this work, where they could actually analyze that and maybe give us some information to move forward with. I'm not opposed to it. I just don't have enough information yet to really feel like I can make an educated decision about it tonight, personally.
Yeah, and the motion is to design at this point, so it would be part of the design discussion would be that kind of issue. Is that what you're thinking?
And I guess if we could, if they could give us options about that, that would be really helpful for me. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Councillor Stapleton.
Yeah, thank you. And Councillor Hoy just kind of took what I was going to say. This is this motion is about creating a plan or doing a study to try and figure how this is going to work. And I think that if staff can bring us both the idea for no turn lane and having that bike lane connected across Market Street versus how does that interplay? What do folks do on their bike when they're in that protected lane and then they're now in a turn lane and then to get across Market? So what's the plan for that, and how could we provide safe passage for folks who are riding their bikes? I think it would be really great to see the different concepts that folks can come up with.
I'm just, the only question I'd have, maybe you can help me with this, is the amended motion, because of what's called for in the motion, strikes me it would limit what staff is being asked to do and might, I don't know, does it limit what you can do? Fernandez, can you guys design based on this, or what's this all do to your ability to give us a broad spectrum of what can be done?
Sure, Mayor. My biggest concern is we think that this is a project that can be implemented fairly inexpensively through paint. If we're limited to having protected, which implies to me that there'd be some kind of raised median. Now we're into a capital project that might then have to wait in the CIP. So I'd like to be able to provide the council with the different options. I think we can certainly look at the protected and just kind of see what the cost might be or what the options might be. But my preference would be to not limit that discussion. With respect to the right turn lane, as Councilor Hoy says, the lane is already there. It's really not going to change much of anything. We certainly would want to design it appropriately. We fully intend to engage with one of our traffic consulting firms to look at it and see what it's necessary. The reason there's a lot of use of it is that is the access to I-5. So Market Street has the interchange. So if you don't want to go up to, down Portland Road, then that's, there's just a lot of, and the access to East Salem and the mall, et cetera. So that's why it's getting a lot of use. So I would hope that we would just be able to look at all of the options.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with pretty much everything that everybody has said, except one thing that the Director Fernandez said. I I would interpret protected lanes as being some sort of visual, something that is raised. And I'm looking at those little cylinders that you sometimes see in the road that, you know, are placed there and they go up maybe, I don't know, 3 feet or whatever. And we have some of those around the city. I personally am less, you know, the right turn lane, I think there's some good arguments that can be made to leave it there. I'm more concerned with the protected. And so I guess, I don't know, Mr. Atchison, I guess if I could make a friendly amendment to my own motion, I would say into a buffered or protected bike lane and with a discussion of the right turn lane.
Any thought of just withdrawing it, letting them, they know what this discussion sounds like. I mean, would that satisfy you, or would you rather?
Well, I'm looking at the maker of the motion, but I'm happy to withdraw the right turn lane aspect of it. But I would really like to say buffered or protected, because to me, that's the bigger issue.
Sure. Dan, what?
My comment is that the motion and the amended motion talk about staff developing a plan. It wouldn't, even as amended, it wouldn't preclude staff from developing different options to bring back to council for further consideration.
Yeah.
Great.
So,
Councilor Stable, oh, I'm sorry,
yeah.
Tom.
Well, you know, if what Dan is saying and what Peter is saying is, we now understand the intent of the council here is to look at more than a buffered bike lane and to potentially look at what we do with the right-hand turn lane as it intersects with the bike lanes. I'm happy with that. Okay. And I really wanted to bring this to the attention, because what's going to happen now is we're going to be putting in transportation system and mobility plans and everything else we're doing with climate action. We're going to be putting in more ways to get around other than by a car. And this is the first chance we've got to say, let's talk about protected bike lanes, because that will make it easier for folks who aren't, I don't know, let's just say I'm an aggressive bike rider, to make it easier for folks who have a little concern riding their bikes to encourage them to do that. Okay. So based on all that, I'm happy to withdraw my motion as long as the staff understands we want a wide range of what we look at.
Great. And the second's okay with withdrawing that?
I'm totally fine with that, as long as we're all talking about
all
the same thing.
Place?
Yeah, and Councilor Anderson, I think, has brought up a lot of good points, and I appreciate him bringing those up and voicing them, and I think that staff fully understand what we're talking about, and we'll bring back something really great.
Yeah, or several things that are really great. It'll be interesting to see what they come up with. And you got it, Mr. Fernandez, you understand the...
I hear it clearly, Mayor.
Okay,
Thank you.
Great. Well, if there's nothing else, then we'll have the recorder call the roll on the motion.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Leung absent. Councillor Gonzalez absent. Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordike.
Aye.
Councillor Barney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Anderson.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Now let's move to information reports. Does anyone do you all want to move ahead on 6A? Would you like to have some time to think it through? Do you want to make a motion tonight? What would you like to do? Councillor Hoy, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, my thoughts are it's not ready for a motion tonight.
Okay.
There are certain aspects of it that I think are fantastic. I have a couple of concerns. I don't think we're there tonight.
Okay.
Personally. Yeah,
I tend to agree with you. I think you might get just a piece of what you want to do rather than the whole thing if you had a chance to really think it through. And I think the realization I just passed along to the Parks and Recreation Board through Dylan is there's tremendous interest in this, and how best to facilitate the relationship he's describing, I think is what's really at issue. So is everybody okay with that? We just kind of move along then? Okay, great. Okay. Anything else on the information reports? All right, we will go then to our second readings. this is it's pretty cool what we're doing tonight. It's just amazing, a real tribute to the work the staff did and the council did on getting this to a point that we can vote on second reading. And I'll tell you what, with just minimal Sturm und Drang on this thing. I remember last time we did this, it was unbelievably complicated. This went really well. So why don't we go ahead starting with second reading on 7.2A.
Mayor, I believe Councillor Hoy will be making a motion first.
Thank you. I move to engross ordinance bill number 9-22 as set forth in attachment 1 and pass the ordinance as engrossed.
Second.
Okay.
I think
still a great job.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think there's anything more to be said.
All right, thank you. Engrossed ordinance bill number 922, an ordinance amending the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan. Councillor Leung is absent. Councillor Gonzalez absent. Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordijk.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Anderson.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Councillor Hoy.
I move to engross ordinance bill number 10-22 as set forth in attachment 1 and pass the ordinance as engrossed.
Second. Okay. Amy, you want to go ahead?
Sure will. Engrossed ordinance bill number 1022, an ordinance amending the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan map, the generalized land use maps in the Candu, Elna, Liberty Boone, Grant, Highland, Nesca, Lansing, Morningside, Nen, Cessna, Sunny Slope, and the West Salem neighborhood plans, and the Salem zoning map for properties across Salem. Councillor Gonzalez absent. Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordijk.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Anderson.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Leung absent. Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Councillor Hoy.
I move to engross ordinance bill number 11-22 as set forth in attachment 1 and pass the ordinance as engrossed.
Second.
Thank you. And one moment, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to have this automatically read. So one moment, please.
Okay.
It'll be a little quicker than last time. Let's see. Everybody see the ordinance on the screen? Great. One moment here.
$111.001,
Starting over.
Engrossed ordinance bill number 1122. An ordinance relating to land use, amending SRC 30.405, 64.005, 0.015, 100, and 10.025, 111.001. 205.030, 0.070, 210.005, 0.045, 220.005, 260.030, 300.100, 510.005, 0.010, 511.005, 0.010, 513.010, 514.010, 515.005, 0.010, 0.015, 0.020, 521.010, 522.010, 523.010, 525.010, 533.010, 0.015, 534.010, 0.015, 543.010, 550.015, 551.005, 0.010, 552.010, 553.010, 554.010, 700.055, 702.005, 0.015, 0.020, 703.030, 0.070, 806.005, 900.075, 0.080, 0.090, 0.095, 0.150, 0.155, 0.165, 0.170, 0.175, 0.185, 0.190, 0.200, 0.210, 0.290. Renumbering and amending SRC 537, repealing SRC 215, 512, 520, 555, 556, 604, 605, 606, 608, SRC 609, 612, 613, 614, 615, 616, 617, 619, 620, 626, 627, 628, 630, 631, 900.235, 0.240, 0.250, 0.255, 0.260, 0.270, repealing and replacing SRC 532 and 535, and creating new provisions SRC 64.011, 0.026, 536, and 700.021.
All right, Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Anderson.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Leon absent. Councillor Gonzalez absent. Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. And 7.2D.
All right. Ordinance bill number 1222, an ordinance adopting the Salem Housing Needs Analysis, a support document of the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan. Councillor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Anderson.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Leon absent. Councillor Gonzalez absent. Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. And then 7.2E.
Engrossed ordinance bill number 1322, an ordinance designating the Eco Earth Globe located at 230 Front Street Southeast, Salem, Oregon, as a local historic resource. Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Anderson.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Leon absent. Councillor Gonzalez absent. Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordyke.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Or ordinance passes. I don't have anyone signed up for public comments, so unless there's objection, we're adjourned.
For more videos and for more information, go to capitalcommunitymedia.org and follow us on social media.